Learning Activity Sheet 2. What is a journalist? Background information for learners. Journalists work in many areas of life, finding and presenting information. Let us define journalists. Principally as men and women who present that information as news to the audiences of newspapers, magazines, radio or television stations or the internet. What do journalists do? Within these different media, there are specialist tasks for journalists. In large organizations, the journalists may specialize in only one task. In small organizations, each journalist may have to do many different tasks. Here are some of the jobs journalists do. Reporters gather information and present it in a written or spoken form in news stories, feature articles or documentaries. Reporters may work on the staff of news organizations, but may also work freelance, writing stories for whoever pays them. General reporters cover all sorts of news stories, but some journalists specialize in certain areas such as reporting sport, politics or agriculture. Sub-editors take the stories written by reporters and put them into a form which suits the special needs of their particular newspaper, magazine, bulletin or web page. Sub-editors do not usually gather information themselves. Their job is to concentrate on how the story can best be presented to their audience. They are often called subs. The person in charge of them is called the chief sub-editor, usually shortened to chief sub. Photojournalists use photographs to tell the news. They either cover events with a reporter, taking photographs to illustrate the written story, or attend news events on their own, presenting both the pictures and a story or caption. The editor is usually the person who makes the final decision about what is included in the newspaper, magazine or news bulletins. He or she is responsible for all the content and all the journalists. Editors may have deputies and assistants to help them. The news editor is the person in charge of the news journalists. In small organizations, the news editor may make all the decisions about what stories to cover and who will do the work. In larger organizations, the news editor may have a deputy, often called the chief of staff, whose special job is to assign reporters to the stories selected. Feature writers work for newspapers and magazines, writing longer stories which usually give background to the news. In small organizations, the reporters themselves will write feature articles. The person in charge of features is usually called the features editor. Larger radio or television stations may have specialist staff producing current affairs programs, the broadcasting equivalent of the feature article. The person in charge of producing a particular current affairs program is usually called the producer, and the person in charge of all the programs in that series is called the executive producer or EP. Specialist writers may be employed to produce personal commentary columns or reviews of things such as books, films, art or performances. They are usually selected for their knowledge about certain subjects or their ability to write well. Again, small organizations may use general reporters for some or all of these tasks. There are many other jobs which can be done by journalists. It is a career with many opportunities. Why be a journalist? People enter journalism for a variety of reasons, but, money apart, there are 4 main motives. The desire to write. Journalists are the major group of people in most developing countries who make their living from writing. Many young people who see themselves as future novelists choose journalism as a way of earning a living while developing their writing skills. Although writing for newspapers and writing for books require different qualities, the aspiration to be a great writer is not one to be discouraged in a would-be journalist. The desire to be known. Most people want their work to be recognized by others. This helps to give it value. Some people also want to be recognized themselves, so that they have status in the eyes of society. It is not a bad motive to wish to be famous, but this must never become your main reason for being a journalist. You will not be a good journalist if you care more for impressing your audience than for serving their needs. The desire to influence for good. Knowing the power of the printed or spoken word or image, especially in rural areas, some people enter journalism for the power it will give them to influence people. In many countries, a large number of politicians have backgrounds as journalists. It is open to question whether they are journalists who moved into politics or natural politicians who used journalism as a stepping stone. There is a strong belief that journalists control the mass media, but the best journalists recognize their role as servants of the people. You should never use journalism for selfish ends, but you can use it to improve the life of other people, remembering that they may not always agree with you on what those improvements should be. There is a strong tradition in Western societies of the media being the so-called fourth estate. Traditionally, the other three estates were the church, the aristocracy, and the rest of society, but nowadays the idea of the four estates is often defined as government, courts, clergy, and the media, with the media, the fourth estate, acting as a balance and an advocate for ordinary citizens against possible abuses from the power and authority of the other three estates. This idea of journalists defending the rights of ordinary people is a common reason for young people entering the profession. The desire for knowledge. Curiosity is a natural part of most people's characters and a vital ingredient for any journalist. Lots of young men and women enter the profession with the desire to know more about the world about them without needing to specialize in limited fields of study. Most journalists tend to know a little bit about a lot of things, rather than a lot about one subject. Knowledge has many uses. It can simply help to make you a fuller and more interesting person. It can also give you power over people, especially people who do not possess that particular knowledge. Always bear in mind that power can be used in a positive way, to improve people's lives, or in a selfish way to advance yourself. What does it take? Most young men and women accepted into the profession possess at least one of the above desires from the start. But desires alone will not make a successful journalist. You need to cultivate certain special qualities and skills. An interest in life. You must be interested in the world around you. You must want to find things out and share your discoveries with your readers or listeners, so you should have a broad range of interests. It will help if you already have a wide range of knowledge to build upon and are always prepared to learn something new. Love of language. You cannot be a truly great journalist without having a deep love of language, written or spoken. You must understand the meaning and flow of words and take delight in using them. The difference between an ordinary news story and a great one is often not just the facts you include, but the way in which you tell those facts. An alert and ordered mind. People trust journalists with facts, either the ones they give or the ones they receive. You must not be careless with them. All journalists must aim for accuracy. Without it you will lose trust, readers, and ultimately your job. You should always have a notebook handy to record facts and comments, but your mind is the main tool. Keep it orderly. You should also keep it alert. Never stop thinking, and use your imagination. This is not to say you should make things up, that is never permissible. But you should use your imagination to build up a mental picture of what people tell you. You must visualize the story. A suspicious mind people will give you information for all sorts of reasons. Some justified, others not. You must be able to recognize occasions when people are not telling their truth. Sometimes people do it unknowingly, but you will still mislead your readers or listeners if you report them, whatever their motives. You must develop the ability to recognize when you are being given false information. Determination. Some people call it aggressiveness, but we prefer the word determination. It is the ability to go out, find a story and hang on to it until you are satisfied you have it in full. Ask hard questions and risk upsetting people who do not want to cooperate. Always be polite, however rude people may be. The rule is simple. Be polite but persistent. Friendliness. You need to be able to get on well with all sorts of people. You cannot pick and choose who to interview in the same way as you choose who to have as a friend. You must be friendly to all, even those people you dislike. You can, of course, be friendly to someone without being their friend. If you are friendly to everyone, you will also be fair with everyone. Reliability. This is a quality admired in any profession, but is especially valued in journalism, where both your employer and your audience rely on you to do your job. Even if you are late for an appointment, you will upset the schedules of both your interviewee and your newsroom, and risk being refused next time you want a story. In a busy news organization, punctuality is a necessity. Without it there would be chaos. What does